As Joanne said, we were in Amsterdam last week, and the part of the session that I was dealing with, or that I attended, was the international tax session, and a lot of that was about transfer pricing, which is about, as Joanne said, about the price at which goods and services and profit is allocated between territories. And it was quite interesting, actually, just to show that there is a bit of a tie-in between these various areas. That transfer pricing thing, you would have heard a lot about it over the last 18 months because Amazon have been at it and Starbucks have been at it and Google's been at it, and people have been talking about how is it that Google can make millions of pounds in the UK but pay 380 in tax. And a lot of it is to do with transfer pricing and the rate at which they transfer goods and services between territories. There was an interesting thing in the transfer pricing talk last week, which was talking about Starbucks. And Kate's already talked about the branding of Starbucks. And the brand has actually got a lot to do with why Starbucks paid so little tax in the UK, because what they're saying is that out of the £3.25 that you pay for your skinny latte with whatever else, how much of that value is actually related to the coffee? How much of it is related to the coffee? Why do people go into Starbucks? Do they go into Starbucks because it's the best coffee? No, by and large, they're going to Starbucks because it's a nice place, there's a good brand, it's got a nice warm feel to it. Where was that nice warm feel developed? It was all developed in America. So is it not right that most of that profit goes across to America? So there is a tie-in between all of this. I just thought I'd share that with you. Nothing to do with what I'm talking about. I just find it quite interesting. Anyway, today what we're going to talk about is people power. And we've talked about people in various sessions today. Mike's talked about the value of the management team. Kate's talked about how important it is that you get your people on board with your brand. Joanne's talked about how important it is and how good it can be for your businesses to export overseas and how important that is for your people. I'm going to talk a little bit about how you can try to motivate and energize your employees using some sort of financial tools, if you like. And why should we bother doing it? Well, here's a quote from Jack Welch, who used to head up GE. There are only 3 measurements that tell you nearly everything you need to know about your organization's overall performance: employee engagement, customer satisfaction, and cash flow. We talked a bit about cash flow and management information with Andrew, customer satisfaction to a degree with Kate. It goes without saying that no company, small or large, can win over the long run without energized employees who believe in the mission and understand how to achieve it. So what I'm going to talk about today is about why energized employees are important and how we can try to energize them. So if you energize your employees, you get them really engaged in your business, what will it give you? It will give you stability of workforce. They won't leave. The good people won't leave. We all know how painful it is when people do that. It'll give you the means to achieve your business plan. You won't be able to do whatever it is you want to do in business unless you take your people with you and they're bought into that plan. It might give you the route to succession or exit. They might become your MBO team. And they might find that business attractive and buy it from you. Or alternatively, they might be just a second-tier management that a third party be willing to take over as part of your business. So what energizes them? There's been loads of studies about this, going back many, many, many years. And there can be quite a lot of HR argument about how do you motivate people. This is just some of them. They're not in any particular order, so it doesn't necessarily mean wages is the only thing. Please don't take that away. I've just put that one at the top. So, good wages, that energizes them, motivates them. Appreciation, saying thank you, that helps. Job security, they know they're going to have a job this week, next month, next year. Promotion and growth in the organization. Are we part of a forward-looking business? And interesting work. I've got to come here, so I might as well make it interesting. But what do employers want from a reward plan? 4 things. Cost effectiveness. Doesn't have to cost the earth, but they want targeted rewards which enhance performance. Employers, by and large, are happy to reward employees so long as they see some sort of productivity or performance improvement in the long run. Flexibility. They don't want this to be driving the business. It needs to be flexible. And competitive edge. This is really, really important. What makes this business stand out from its competitors? How can you make sure that you get the very best business, very best people in your business? There's lots of aspects to reward packages that we can talk about. I'm only going to talk about 2 today. But the 2 important ones: helping your employees protect their families and their future, and involving employees in the shares of the company. And this first one has a lot to do with looking to the longer term. And I'm going to be talking about things that and products that we talk to our clients about in conjunction with the team at Evolution Financial Limited, which is our IFA business. So obviously, because that is a regulated industry, what I'm going to talk about is very, very general, but hopefully it'll give you some insight into that area. Employees are interested in making sure that their families are protected. There's lots of research available to suggest that most workforces will have to deal with the consequences of one of their employees dying during their lifetime. But employee rewards just don't have to be salary. We can provide lots of other types of benefit to help the business really look after what their employees are concerned about. And we can link that to different grades of service or to the different services that they provide. And if you're providing some sort of protection for your employees, that can be a really good differentiator over and above just a plain simple salary package to make sure you get the very best people into your business. There are three main types of benefits that we'll talk about: pension, death in service, so some sort of life assurance protection, or private medical cover. And dealing with pensions first, pensions are really, really topical. Only last week in his budget, summer budget, George Osborne was at it again, doing various other things with pensions. Awareness of pensions is growing very significantly. Barely a week goes past when we haven't dealt with some aspect of pensions. And access to pension funds is improving, and everybody will know that from April this year, it's become much more easy for people to get access to the pension funds than previously. But probably more importantly, pension funds are no longer a choice for employers. Up to now, employers have been able to kind of ignore pension funds if they wanted to. Not any longer. Every business will need to have some sort of pension scheme installed in it by 2017. And that can be a bit of a chore, or more optimistically, I guess, you can look at it as an advantage and build it now into part of your remuneration planning. The 2017 deadline is imposed by automatic enrolment, and don't get scared, I'm not going to be talking about automatic enrolment for ages. But basically, employers need to think about this and be ready for 2017, if not already. And they've really got to think about 3 or 4 things. How do they meet the requirements under the new legislation? How do they make sure that they are kept legal? Because already the government are already checking on employers who should have already had their pension schemes in place to make sure that they're complying with the legislation. There are a range of pension providers to use. They need to make sure they choose the best one. This is going to cost the business money. The businesses will need to put contributions into the scheme. That will have a financial impact. That needs to be prepared for and dealt with. But better, let's just try and build it into the remuneration strategy itself, so that rather than a non-cost, it just becomes part of the cost of employing your employees going forward. So pensions really could be an advantage. It could be an opportunity for your business if you look at it critically and you look at it strategically. Death in service and group life. Death in service cover, it's just providing some life assurance cover should one of your employees die whilst being with you. And it provides employees with security for their family in the event of that occurrence. 2 basic types, and again, this is not a big seminar about life assurance, so don't get too scared. Group life scheme is basically a scheme which provides life assurance for a broad category of employees. So that might be a broad category of, let's say, senior managers, or the broad category of directors, or a broad category of people who work in the office in Sunderland or the office in Alnwick. And because it's cover for a broad range of employees, we don't need to have medical underwriting, so we don't need to go through that process. This is typically cover that is provided as a multiple of salary. So you could say that a person in an office gets salary or gets cover at 2 times salary, and if they get promoted, they get more life assurance. There's no taxation consequences on the employee and of the premiums that are paid under the policy, and the premiums are tax deductible so far as the business is concerned. So it's a very tax efficient way of providing a different and additional benefit to your employees. Moving on though, if you can't quite segregate your clients or segregate your employees into those broad categories of manager or senior manager or the people in Sunderland, then you might want to look down this route, a relevant life policy. A relevant life policy is much more discretionary, so it's targeted to particular individuals. The company, again, pays the contributions, and the policy can be based on a multiple of salary of up to 21 times that person's salary. So to take a simple example, salary of £10,000 could provide £210,000 worth of life cover. Again, no tax on the employee, tax deductible for the business, but the difference with this one is because it's personal to that employee, it has to be medically underwritten, so you had to go through the health questionnaire. But very, very useful and very, very flexible, and a good alternative, and quite a cheap alternative to traditional life assurance cover, which the employee might already be paying for. So you can provide something out of the business to him that he's already paying for and provide a real cost to them. Private medical cover. Why get interested in private medical cover? Because it provides peace of mind. Peace of mind to the employees, but also some peace of mind for you. If one of your employees falls sick and you have a private medical cover policy in place, they can get quick diagnosis, they can get quick treatment, they can get back to work more quickly. And it can be extended to employees' families, and the benefits, the encouragement that you're giving to your employees by demonstrating to them that not only are you looking after them, but you're looking after the family is huge. And this is a great differentiator. As you'll see, as you'll have seen, pension has to be put into all employers now. So within in 2 years, everybody will have a pension scheme through their employer. Life insurance in many, this in not quite so many. So if you really want to stand out from the crowd, private medical cover might be the right way to go. But please don't forget in all of this that directors are our employees too. So if you're running your business, there is no reason why you can't benefit from some of these types of cover as well. And it's important that you recognize that this business that you've created is an asset and you protect it and you look after the value of it by making sure that those in your family are protected too. The other area I want to look at though today is employee shares. And businesses quite often approach us at Evolution and say that they want to give shares to one or all or some of their employees. And they always think about it in terms of, well, I'm giving my employee something and it's a tax-efficient way of doing it. And then we start to have a bit of a discussion. And this is one of the reasons why I enjoy doing what I do, being head of the tax team at Evolution, because you've really got to get under the skin of what it is the business is about and what the business owner is trying to do. And when you talk to people about, well, why do you want to give employees shares? They say, well, it'll give them some security. It makes them feel part of the business. It's not money. I don't have to write them a check. There's a low immediate cost in tax, in cash terms. And it's tax efficient, isn't it? And what it means is we're all working together as a team. The interests of the shareholders, of the wider shareholders, and the interests of the employees are aligned. But then when we have a bit of a discussion, sometimes they start to think, well, maybe this is not quite such a good idea. And some of the things I'll tell them about is that by and large, over dealing with this sort of stuff for 20 odd years, you find that, and with apologies to any minority shareholders in the audience before I say this, minority shareholders are usually trouble. They can usually cause you bother without necessarily a whole load of benefit. Far from being tax efficient, giving employees shares in your company is likely to bring a tax charge with it. Giving shares to employees is great when you're all getting along, but what happens when you fall out? How are you going to get the shares back? Is that going to cost you money? But more importantly than all of that, does the employee really value getting a share? There are only 3 things the share will give you. Pretty much. It'll give you ownership. It'll give you a share certificate. And some people like to have a share certificate on the wall while they're having a lunch at home and say, look, I own part of the business. Some people do, but not many. it might give you dividends. It might give you a share of the income. But if you're a minority shareholder, you'll only get a share of the income if the majority shareholder wants to give it to you. So you've got no guarantee there. And it might give you a slice of the cake if the business is sold. It might, if the business is sold. So before you give shares to employees, you really need to dig down and find out from them whether this is something that they are going to value. Because if they're not going to value it, don't give it to them. You're just giving away something for nothing. And that's why we often go down the route of share options. Share options sound scary, but it isn't. 4 things you've got to remember about share options. It's a promise. That's all it is. It's just a promise. And when you give a share option to an employee, what you're saying is, I will promise that under certain circumstances, I will get shares to you at some point in the future for a price that we're probably going to agree now. That's all it is. It's just that promise. And these can be very flexible. Let's have a look at an example. There's some names in here that you might recognize. Cameron Limited offers a chap called Mr. Clegg. It just goes to show how quickly things move in politics. I wrote this when Clegg was the leader, and today we're hearing about the new leader of the Liberal Democrats, so maybe I should have updated it, hadn't known who he was going to be. But Cameron Limited offers Mr. Clegg an option to acquire 5% of the shares in the company at £1 a share. Total cost £500. Mr. Clegg exercises the options, and in 5 years' time, he exercises the options in 5 years' time. So I'm making the promise, Cameron Limited is making the promise today to say you can, at some point in the future, buy these shares for £1. Clegg exercises the option in 5 years' time, pays his £500. At that point, the company's grown, the 5%, happy days, is now worth £100,000. He pays £500 for the shares, he gets an asset worth £100,000. That sounds to me like a cracking good deal. What are the benefits to the employers of going down the share option route? You can control the time when the exercise takes place. You might not want to have a minority shareholder on your hands for ages, so you can say you can only exercise this option at a time when the company is about to be sold. So you can get the value, you, the employee, can get the value without me having to worry about having to deal with a minority shareholder. You can link the ability to exercise the options to performance. So you can say, here, Clegg, here is your option over 500 shares. You can only exercise it at a time when the business grows, or your performance or your sales go up by this particular percentage. If you're looking to grow or expand the business, you'll often find that funders will require a share option scheme to be introduced. Why? Because they want to tie in that important management team. And you can structure the options to actually give the employee something that he values. You're only going to retain and motivate people by giving them something that they value. And you can structure the share option to give them precisely that. And as a relatively minor point, there's some corporation tax relief that's available too. The employee's point of view, what's the benefit to him? Well, it restricts the loss on investment. So Clegg, to take my example, options over 500 shares at £1. He is only going to give up his £500 probably if he thinks that the asset at some point is going to be worth more than that. So if the business does disastrously and goes bankrupt, he doesn't exercise his options, he keeps his £500 in his pocket. There's no money required up front. You're giving the employee a promise. And what's even better, the revenue will approve certain types of schemes, not all of them, but certain types of them. And what that means that if there are tax liabilities inherent in all of this, you can calculate them now, and you can tell them what the employees what they're going to be, so they have certainty. So, employees are the lifeblood of most, if not all, businesses, and they will be absolutely fundamental in driving your business and driving the value of it. We can help you motivate your team by coming up with some really innovative remuneration plans that they value, and that's really important. It's not any old nonsense, it's stuff that really gets to the heart of what your employees want. So if you want us to help us, you know where to find us.